We're at the longest wave in the world. That's not our claim, it's just true.
Yep.
We're focusing on wing foiling right now, but in any sport, riding a wave that perfect, you're able to really feel everything and like kind of change things and like kind of dial it in. Welcome to the Real Board Loft. I'm Trip Forman. We got Austin Leader with us. Austin, welcome.
Thank you.
And as you can tell, we are not in the Real Board Loft. We are enjoying this beautiful day here in Cape Hatteras, where blue is making its debut.
Not gray.
Austin, we are just back from Real Chicama, and absolutely epic trip. I was able to be down there for a week. How long were you down there for?
We were there 17 days.
Okay.
Yeah, almost 3 weeks, and it was incredible. From 1 to 2 foot to 4 to 5 foot, longest rides of my life on wing and tow foiling. Incredible wave.
Awesome. And you were also working with groups of guests, right? Both weeks. I think we had like 9 people with us week 1 and another 9 people week 2. How did the guests do out there wing foiling?
Yeah, we had a great turnout for ability levels for winging and tow foiling. You know, it's a very easy introductory wave for people to get into on winging. You know, the conditions there are very gusty, inconsistent wind. So being able to handle those kind of conditions are very key. Everyone did really well, and you know, most people got pretty long rides on a wave with a wing. So.
Awesome. So we're going to focus this video on wing foiling and like what we learned from the Chicama trip. Let's dig in first into your own equipment, about what you were using, and then we're going to expand into like what you saw the guests using, like both at the beginning of the trip through the end of the trip as well. So let's take a look at your wing foil kit, like what you're using, board all the way down through your front wing and your tail wing.
Yeah, so I was in between the 40-liter FG and the 45-liter mid-length. It was actually my first time trying out the mid-length, and I really liked that for this trip. It just allows you to gain speed really quickly. You know, it's a little more unstable or tippy, but you know, your ability to get up on foil in those kind of lulls and stuff is really nice in that area. So I was mainly using the 45, and then mast length, we were using the 865 the majority of the trip.
Okay. On
the bigger days, the 935 was really nice, just to be able to turn a little harder, and you just had more room for error on your mast. Winging wise, I was mostly using the 580 front wing, the HA 580. And then on the smaller days, I was using the 680, 60 fuse, and between the 120 and the 140 dart tail wing was kind of my quiver, what I was using the most.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the different sensations. Because, I mean, let's back up a little bit, right? So we're at the longest wave in the world. That's not our claim, it's just true.
Yep.
Right? And so in that situation, in any sport, you know, we're focusing on wing foiling right now, but in any sport, riding a wave that perfect, you're able to really feel everything and like kind of change things and like kind of dial it in. So it's like this is like a great platform to like ask you questions, FG versus mid-length. Like on those waves, like kind of, because I know a lot of people have FGs and they're thinking about a mid-length. Like, what was the differences that you were feeling FG versus mid-length, like on those waves, as far as performance?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like the FG a little better when I'm like actually on the wave.
Okay.
It's a little shorter, so the swing weight and everything is it just allows you to turn a little quicker, but the mid-length, just like the aspect of getting through lulls and the on-water experience on the mid-length, I liked better. For on-wave, I did like the FG a little better, but it's just a little more of a struggle when you're in those lulls and things like that. So I would recommend being on a slightly bigger leader board there, just to get through those lulls. Because the wind is very gusty. So.
Right, because we were working with like, it was side offshore.
Yeah,
and sometimes straight offshore with the gusts, you know?
Exactly.
Because it would kind of bend. Like sometimes it was almost close to side, but then predominantly it was side off with like sometimes even straight offshore.
For sure.
Gusts.
Yeah, the direction was constantly changing while we were out
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Let's talk about, like, you talked a little bit about like your mast lengths and your front foils, your tail wings, your fuses. Let's talk about what you saw the guests using, like initially day one of each week, and like what they progressed to, or kind of what they were gravitating towards as they were getting closer to the end of their trip.
Yeah, so this is kind of a typical setup that we saw a lot from the guests. Most people are riding HA 880 or 780 front wings, and board size was in the anywhere from like 90 liters down to like 60 liters.
Okay.
So that was kind of the sweet spot sweet spot would have been like 70 liters for most of the guests. Mast size, everyone was pretty much on the 865.
Okay, good.
Or in that range on comparable brands.
Right.
And then 60 fuse was pretty standard. The tails, most people were riding on the 180 speed tail if they were on Armstrong.
Okay. Over the course of time, like, did you see people gravitating towards smaller front wings? Because I remember at a couple different points of when I was there was like a 580 kind of scramble.
Oh yeah.
Like, who's got a 580? Can I borrow your 580? Like, what did you notice people learning and like kind of implementing in their gear?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just even for me and for the guests, I think everyone realized that they could ride a lot smaller front foils than they're used to.
Okay.
Just because the Wave offers such a big canvas of power to be able to be in. Me personally, I was normally coming into this like riding the 680 range front wings, and I was dialing down to a 580 or even the 480 a few times.
Okay.
So most people were actually riding a little bit smaller front wing than they were used to coming into the trip.
Okay. Both you and Joey mentioned going even longer on the mast than 865 in bigger surf. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about that, because I got a 935 right here. What does the bigger mast do for you in bigger surf?
Yeah, so bigger surf, it just allows you more room for error, right? Like if you're taking steeper drops or you're making harder turns, it just gives you more room to work with.
Okay.
And then also with bigger surf, you're not worried as much about that extra drag in the water. Mm-hmm. Where on smaller surf, we were trying to gravitate towards the 865 just to reduce that drag in the water. Where the bigger surf, you can get away with more carbon in the water and you don't notice it as much.
Longest waves in the world, day one, everyone's saying that was the longest wave I've ever had in my life, right? Day three, they're saying it for the third time because it just keeps getting longer. What was the longest wave that you had at Chicama wing foiling?
Oh, like it had been multiple miles. Like you could catch it all the way from La Punta, which is all the way out the back,
right,
all the way to in front of the hotel, you know, which was like, as the bird flies, like a mile and a half. So actually on the wave, probably 2.5.
As far as like ground covered. And that's awesome, man.
Pretty incredible.
Yeah, no, I mean, all I continued to see was like smiles that went like around people's heads like 3 times.
Yeah.
As they were coming off the water. Let's look a little bit at your hand wing.
Yeah.
And like kind of what you were using. What was, as far as like the quiver that you guys brought down, what was the biggest wing that you used over the course of the 17 days, and what was the smallest?
Yeah, so the biggest wing that I personally used was a 5.3.
Okay.
And then smallest wing that I used was a 4 meter.
Okay.
We had a couple bigger guys using 6.1s a couple days.
All right.
But I would say kind of the sweet spot for people, at least like in my weight range, which is around 170 pounds, is like between a 5.3 and 4 meter.
And what sort of strategy did you take into your own head and like also share with the guests as far as like choosing the right wing for any given day? Like, cause you have that side offshore wind, you got like a lot of gusts, a lot of holes, like kind of what sort of information did you download into your own winging and like also as advice? Yeah,
that was one of the hardest things actually about the trip, is looking out from the hotel and like deciding what the wind is doing, because it's so offshore, it's really hard to tell at the hotel. One of the nice parts about coming out with us is we have the boat, so we were actually bringing multiple size wings out there, and pumping up off the boat.
Yep.
So we actually got to feel what the wind was doing, you know, when we were choosing our gear, which is really, really nice to have that ability to do that. Yeah, honestly, you were just looking at whitecaps off the, you know, off the balcony and hoping that you chose right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
having that ability to choose when we were out there is
And
really
then
nice.
game changer for you guys was the ride engine airbox, right?
Oh yeah.
In the boat.
Yeah.
So next year we're bringing how many airboxes?
We're bringing one for every instructor.
Every boat?
Yeah.
In a previous conversation, you mentioned like going with a little bit more power so that you can get up on foil in those holes and then also be able to work your way back upwind, like up against coastal land. Is that right?
For sure. It's a winging situation that you really want to have more power over less power.
Okay.
Mainly to get you through those lulls, and just to get up on foil quickly when you need to. You know, it is in a wave situation, so being able to get up on foil quickly and, you know, when there's a set coming or something like that is important. And yeah, so we were kind of sizing up a little more than we normally would, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever ridden a wave for that long with a wing flagged behind you for that long?
No, not even close.
Right. Let's talk about the guest experience and kind of like the riding that they experienced while they were down there with us. You know, we had varying abilities of riders coming in. Like, where would you recommend, like we're doing next year's trip, right, in 2026,
Absolutely.
Where would you recommend people at least come onto the trip with an ability level set at?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a more like high intermediate advanced winging destination.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, having the ability to go out in gusty offshore conditions and also having some kind of wave experience with winging is really going to be important for you to maximize the trip and get the most out of the trip.
Right.
It is not an easy place to wing, but if you come into it with the right credentials, you'll really have a good time. And
so dial your winging skills at home. I mean, obviously upwind.
Yes. Oh yeah.
All your transitions.
Yep.
Gusty wind is going to be a big one.
Yep.
Like if you've got and actually even going off in side offshore conditions, experiencing like side offshore. Because that's not normally, like if you're picking your spot, you're going to be picking a side shore or a side onshore,
right,
which is going to be dead steady. Like pick a place maybe side offshore to get used to that.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely dial in your basic skills, jibes, upwind riding, and get a little taste of waves with the wing before you go there, and you know, you'll really get the most out of the trip.
Let's talk about, let's have a safety meeting. All right, so what sort of safety gear did you see people using when they were out there?
Yeah, almost. I think actually every guest was in a helmet.
Okay.
Highly recommend that, having a helmet on. You know, obviously just got all these sharp objects flying around, and everybody was wearing a leash, and then we also saw lots of impact vests as well.
Okay. What about colors? If you were going down there again, would you bring any colors, or would you just bring black, brown, and gray?
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do, and
right.
wear bright colors.
Bright colors.
Yeah, it just helps the boat drivers see you, and yeah, just it makes you stick out. Helps with the footage as well, just being able to you know, determine who's who. So. And
with that much wave riding, how much progression did you see over the course of a week with the guests that were down with us?
Oh, it was like incredible. I mean, me personally made a lot of progress, and then our guests also were just like went from 0 to hero on their progress for wave riding. Like, it's just allows you so much time to get used to your gear and play around with new techniques and new gear and all that kind of stuff. So
right.
Lots of progress.
Awesome. Well, hey, Austin, thank you so much for joining us. Any of the viewers out there, if you have any questions about the Armstrong gear that we talked about, or would like to place an order for that gear, or you're interested in joining us on the Real Chicama 2026 trip, you can always reach us at the shop, 252-987-6000, or look us up online, realwatersports.com. Thanks for tuning in.